Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. All right, so let's start immediately talking about what has been happening. And we discuss about cash flow, essentially, a lot of cash flow related kind of, either deals or people working in those directions. So the first one is Viceversa, which I found particularly interesting, and as you point out, which is revenue-based financing. So first, let's start by talking about what is Viceversa and what they do, and then we talk about the raise, which is a pretty consistent raise, 3 million in equity and 20 million in debt, and that's an interesting deal, which is being backed by Sella Group and Italian business angels. So let's start with Viceversa as a business.
Yeah, it was a very interesting company. It emerged from stealth announcing this round. They are based in Milan and Dublin, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And they have this revenue-based financing model, which I find fascinating in a world where a lot of digital companies are pivoting to a SaaS or a recurring business model in a sense. And the recurring means, first of all, one thing. The possibility to plan your revenues to going forward, no? Yeah. Because you have a knowledge about what your customer will be doing in the future. And there are a few companies that started to provide capital without being a bank to startups with this type of revenue model, because it's easier at least to plan and finance startups with this model, basing on their revenues. So you call this is basically called revenue-based financing for this, because based on the revenues that you actually have, you repay back the financing that you received from the other startup, because basically they're all startups. So
yeah.
Fun. I think Pipe is one of the most famous ones. From the
US based, Pipe.
The one which started the trend for revenue-based financing.
Yeah. Exactly. What is interesting is that it makes a lot of sense, especially when you see their value proposition in terms of which digital companies they're financing, which essentially everything that has an API and can be validated and fed to their models. That's something interesting for them. So they finance based on the revenue. And what is interesting is also the model of pay as you scale. So they're offering services, but also that the sort of the cost part is properly adjusted depending on the phase of the company. So that's also another very, as you were mentioning, something very, very adjustable and very lean, so it can really support the natural development of a company. Very, very interesting.
Yep. And about the round, 3 million in equity is actually a good seed round, and 20 million in debt, because in the model you provide cash and you get cash back in installments. So it makes sense to have this type of financing, of course.
Fantastic.
There are international investors in this round. And, if I'm not wrong, Fasanara was one of the lead investors, and Fabrick from the Sella Group was an investor as well. And it makes huge sense, because Fabrick is basically the digital platform of the group that's developing and integrating a lot of services and APIs into the open banking world. So it makes a lot of sense for the bank to be in this one.
Interesting. So it's kind of the corporate VC arm of Sella, of Banca Sella, Fabrick. That's their deal, or it's more of an IT / developer arm of the banks, just to integrate a lot of things happening. Let's see.
Well, I wouldn't call Fabrick a corporate venture arm, because Fabrick is the digital platform in the broadest sense as possible of Banca Sella. So any really digital project from the bank is basically being developed by Fabrick, as far as I know, and from what I can see from the outside. But it's also the platform that's integrating external providers. And here and there, you also find them investing in the startups providing services. So it's a sort of, not exactly corporate venture capital, it's sort of broad, in the broad sense, the digital innovation platform of the bank. So when there is anything that is within that perimeter, is basically executed upon by Fabrick.
Perfect.
But Sella is an investor with many different vehicles and funds.
Yeah,
so
different hats, different instrument that they're using. So very active. We've been talking about Banca Sella, and it's definitely a big player to keep an eye on. All right, moving on. Cash flow management startup Sibill raised $500,000 from a group of business angel and a venture builder. So let's talk about that for a second. So Sibill, so Sibill is trying to essentially simplify cash flow management for Italian companies, where usually is pretty non-transparent, especially when it comes to maybe traditional banking, where corporate platform are like a pain to use. So their play is really to pull together like all the data and not only help the cash management, but also do some predictive work in terms of projection and so on. Very actual pain in the Italian ecosystem for sure, I believe, because I've been seeing in the US something like that is done by even like accounting platforms like QuickBooks, NetSuite, and other of the old guard of the first sort of accounting / cash management software as a service. And Sibill is doing something really specific, and it sounds like they're gonna solve a lot of pain in the Italian ecosystem for sure. What do you think?
I agree. I would say that I think I'm no expert, but I think that more structured ERP systems actually include cash flow management. But if you are a small to medium enterprise, probably you are not using one of those. So cash flow is something that you do manually. You outsource to your accountant. You make on Excel if you're digital. So as you said, it makes a lot of sense. It saves your life, literally, probably. At least the one of your company. So that's very
great.
Vertical, extremely narrow, but extremely
very narrow.
With a very broad customer base, if you only look at Sicily, so a lot of
I mean, big potential in Italy for sure, and interesting that a Danish venture builder is also like investing in that, and also our friend Raffaele is one of the angel there, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Well, you can connect the dots because Mattia was one of the people from Endeavor. Raffaele was the CEO. Perfect. And he left Endeavor for this entrepreneurial experience. So if you connect the dots, probably you can see a pattern there.
Makes sense. It's
former boss invests in
it's a validated person. It's a validated
person. You know him, if you trust him, that's
totally. Beautiful. All right, very interesting now. Emotiva, a real-time emotional recognition startup. A lot of people are playing with basically like visual algorithms, trying to refine how we experience emotions. And Emotiva is taking a very interesting like marketing play where they provide an AI-enabled facial recognition software that allows basically the software to understand whether, how exactly you're reacting to a particular piece of content. So being it a video, being it like a post, and so on and so forth. So interesting play, raised 610,000 euros, led by LVenture, of course, one of the big player in the Italian space. They already have 2 great case studies that I was checking, one with Factanza and one with a second company. And it's interesting how exactly they're supporting the marketing effort of digitally native companies in understanding better their customers. And facial recognition is definitely one of the up and rising way of applying AI. So very cool.
Well, you said it all. To add here. So, again, it's one of those technologies that it's going to be probably part of the set of tools of any marketer. So trying to understand the customer not only from how he behaves, but from actually his reactions to your offering. Yeah,
100%. All right, moving on. A few M&A actions, starting from Namirial. And here I would leave you the honor to the privilege to the honor, because it's a lot about essentially like software services and digital trust, which I'm not familiar. What I find particularly interesting, or maybe something we should talk, is about this Ambienta SGR, which I didn't know. It's a 1.5 billion asset under management SGR, which is focusing on sustainable business. It's more of a private equity kind of firm, but it's definitely something also which is playing in the digital. I was checking their portfolio. Basically, they have a lot of traditional sort of brick and mortar, or well, not more brick and mortar, but like manufacturing play, I would say. Instead, kind of like a mid-size. So it's a mid-market player, and but also including like some tech within the portfolio. So that's also something cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know much about Namirial. It's one of those companies that have been around for a little while. They have this offering with different verticals, trust services, basically. Trusted signature. One of the big issues with electronic signature is that you have to identify who's signing, and there is a lot of regulation about you. And the US, they're different. In EU, there's the EIDAS, which provides 3 levels of increasing complexity and strength of authentication.
Wow, very interesting.
Sign the contract. So one of those services is specifically trusted identification of a third party, for example, signing contracts and whatever. Then from the website, I can see software related to the building management, so real estate, and cybersecurity and cyber defense. So I'm discovering a lot of companies in Italy operating cybersecurity and cyber defense.
I know.
It's something that you might think there's nothing around. Actually, there are quite a bit.
No, we've been talking a lot of cybersecurity plays, like in our adventure, exploring what's been happening lately. So that's big, actually. That's definitely absolutely big.
And I'm very happy that you answered to my bait about Ambienta SGR.
Nice.
Because that was just for you. The second part and the first part as well. So about the platform company. So that's fascinating. A lot of private equity operations basically are built around a platform. So I have one company that's very investing to start in a specific market, and then you acquire other players in order to aggregate additional products, services, customers. So you could rapidly increase the value of the company in order to provide a higher for the evaluation at exit. And Namirial is one of the platforms of Ambienta. Netheos is one of the additions to the platform.
Beautiful.
I found it quite interesting. So
very cool.
You answered my bait, and I'm proud of myself.
That's awesome. No, I like to be bait in learning something new. So thanks, Nico. I appreciate it. All right, Zucchetti, also big player. We've been talking about Zucchetti, like moving in the digital space. That's also very interesting, because from a very, very traditional company doing basically printed material for offices, I would say, or something related to that, transitioning into being one of the big player, both in the sort of accounting software, I would say SaaS and non-SaaS. So it was really one of the first moving. And now they are also working in terms of, other kind of plays like gift cards and apps that are, they do like cashbacks. So it's all, again, it's like a modular part of a bigger picture that is like taking shape. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, I think of what they're doing, Zucchetti from on the one side and Team System on the other side, the two most active players here.
Yeah.
They're basically composing a puzzle. I mean, you can see the puzzle taking a shape as they add pieces to it.
Yeah.
And Spiiky is one of those pieces that's being added in the more retail part, if you want, of the image. Of the shape that's emerging with this cashback offering Spiiky. And I believe it got quite a lot of traction. I was reading that they had like 1 million cashback provided, but that something something unexpected. But
I mean,
half a million of people downloaded the app. 1 million of cashback given back, so not too shabby.
No, it's great. I mean, I don't believe in cashback plays, to be honest. I don't use them. I see that this is something that people are sensitive to, and it's another way to engage your clients, especially for retailers like supermarkets and big brands. I can see here Adidas, and I can see they've been working.
Tell it to Satispay.
No, exactly. That's a good point. That's a great point. But you see, Satispay.
I agree with you. It's not something that doesn't sound right about cashback, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea as an add-on to like a more solid payment tool like Satispay, and then it's nice to have cashbacks. But I don't know if I would download an app just for cashbacks. Well, if the cashbacks are substantial, then might make sense. But maybe that's another activation channel for customer actually. So why not?
That's a good point. That's a very
interesting. All right, let's talk about the IAG index. That's very interesting. I didn't know about this. So IAG is one of the big angel groups here in Italy, based in Milan. They've been investing for I would say a decade probably, and they have released, or have they been released this index for a while, or is it something new? Because I didn't hear about it. I was trying to see where was the calculation done, how was it, what is the database for it, and it's a cool idea. It's a cool thing to have like a sort of a startup index. Very challenging probably. So again, that's another rabbit hole. You and I, Nico, would love to explore like how exactly that index is put together in its specific details. Wow. But that's a topic for another conversation.
I play with that idea every other week. So, but still, the data comes from their deal flow. So they build the index on the deals that they actually see. And most of the deals that they see come from their networks. So basically, angels bring the deals on the table. And there's this investment team that works full time for the club. Basically, this is the output of their 12 months from July to June.
I see.
July 2020, June 2021, or what happens on their deal flow. It tells a lot on what business angels are looking and are interested into. So it seems from their report, a lot of fintech, a lot of life sciences, but it makes sense considering the investor space of IAG. And quite above the average presence of female founders.
Interesting.
So this is what's emerging from their index.
Yeah, 1 in 3 startups. Yeah, with a women founder, 1 in 3 of everything they had a look at for sure. Interesting.
Yeah, that's. I mean, still not in parity, but getting closer. And again, this is a biased index because it depends on what the BAs, the business angels, are actually paying. So it's quite interesting on what they're seeing and what might be on the market in the next 5 years, because they're active quite early.
I mean, it doesn't feel like an index, but more like a sort of a probe inside the business angel world and how the Italian business angel are thinking and what do they want to see. So that's probably more accurate, but it's a good way to sort of be engaged with the numbers and see what the trends are moving. So they even include like some like a deeper ESG factor in their analysis. So it's definitely something to look at for sure.
Yep. But the IAG Pro doesn't sound as good as the IAG.
Yeah.
So
I know the marketing was.
Sound to it. IAG Pro. Let me give you the IAG Pro.
Here's the IAG Pro for you. I mean, I try to be precise with language, but sometimes precision it's not
marketing.
Exactly, it's not good for marketing. Yeah, Nick, good, excellent point. All right, very cool article that you mentioned from Giuseppe Dombito from P101, one of the big venture capital firms in Italy, making a strong comment on how exactly in Italy there is a late stage sort of missing a late stage gap where a startup, they are receiving like their first seed, their first Series A round, but there is a huge gap from there on how exactly they're going to grow up and graduate to the next round. So what he's saying is that essentially like we are behind compared to France or Germany and obviously US. We're growing, which is good. There are a ton of money put into work in the economy through the government, which is great, but we're still missing this big element, which is the rounds, which are above 6 million euros, I believe. Yeah, exactly. So that is the big gap for according to his article.
Well, if you connect the dots about timing articles and announcements, so this is a good follow-up on the announcement by the Italian government to give 2 billion to CDP. So I think that sounds like...
okay. You see a connection.
Dear State Bank, now that you're at the capital, please support late-stage funds in launching the present in Italy or whatever. But he has a point.
Yeah, for sure.
The big rounds are all led by foreigners.
Yeah, I was curious, like talking about this topic, what is the rate of birth of early stage funds versus like later fund in Italy? Because as we discussed, the CDP has a part of their funds dedicated to funds of funds for new manager. So that will be interesting to see exactly how many of those are early stage and how many actually they're trying to push the late stage. Maybe that's something also interesting to see. Tough to know, probably very tough to know, because probably there is no data available. Yeah, unless we need to talk with a bunch of people and see what they feel. That's the data analysis we can make in Italy. That's for now.
Well,
but
you don't know about a new fund until an announcement. You probably make an announcement when you're very close, at least, to the first closing.
True, that's absolutely true.
You tend not to announce a fund if you're not raising the money. That's
Yeah.
A bold move.
Super bold.
I have no idea.
No, that's good. That's good.
But I've got another point. So that's not only about someone who comes up with the idea of raising a late stage fund. You need experience raising a late stage fund. So that's not about giving around 200,000 euros, 500,000 euros. That's easy. It's probably a totally different set of competencies and of processes and of ability to execute when you want to invest 15 million euros. That's something that in Italy currently on the private equity is accustomed to investing, to deploying, but with private equity rules. That's not venture capital. That's totally different. So we were talking about platforms. You mean platforms are not minority investments, so they're majority investment. Ambienta owns Namirial, and it makes whatever it wants with Namirial, and that's not.
That's a good point. Yeah. What I also liked about the article is the shout out that Giuseppe did on assicurazioni and fondi pensione, which I thought it was very much yelling at them, like we felt like he has a US taste in it, but and saying, come on guys, we can do it, because typically those are not your regular VC investor, institutional investor. So I thought it was cool that he was like, okay, here we have a mess in terms of, you know, simplification from the, you know, the fiscal policies and the bureaucracy, fine, but also insurance and pension funds need to sort of wake up.
It was. They are the traditional big private investors in VC funds. And again, we probably talked about this. So it makes a lot of sense in diversifying their asset under management. So both for insurances and for pension funds. And come on, I mean, startups, future of work. So who's gonna to pay new pensions and new contributions to pension funds? Workers. Where do the workers come from? Enterprise.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah.
The cycle is an extremely long feedback loop. That's the feedback loop.
That's the loop.
That's the only one. That's the
only one. There is no escape to that. Exactly. Very interesting. Very interesting position.
I hope sooner rather than later, but sooner or later that loop must, in a sense, engage.
I agree.
We'll see.
Awesome. All right, let's conclude with our big friend Azimuth. We've been one of our favorite in this podcast. We're just always blown away on how many projects these guys are pulling, which is great. The latest one you mentioned is about the 35 million euro commitment on the building of a new innovation hub in southern Italy. And it's done through one of their fund, if I'm not mistaken, is Infrastructure Fund for Growth. And so here another, you know, tip to the hat to Azimuth, saying, you know, not only investing in digital, but also investing in the building of the ecosystem, also through more traditional infrastructure projects. So that's
literal building.
Exactly, like a literal ecosystem, a physical ecosystem. Like no digital, it's a building.
It's a building. Awesome. So
it's a building.
Building the building. Well, I didn't even know they had an infrastructure fund for growth. So that's extremely specific in a sense. But as you said, they're investing a lot in the entire value chain.
Yeah, good point.
Which is very, very good, extremely good to know, and to see that happening. So, I agree with you. Tip of the hat.
I can see that they're playing by the Italian rule, like involving a lot of foundation, banks, corporate partners, which is great. And I think that's we're gonna see something good probably. The South is also pretty much like. Benefiting from a lot of like you know, programs that are trying to help the southern ecosystem. That's a good way to do it also.
Yep.
All right, and with that, Nico, thank you so much for the run through of the news for the week, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jack. It was a great conversation as usual. See you in a week. And
awesome.
Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Bye.